Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ollie Hayes, and today I'm bringing you some reaction to the news that Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been offered a new deal at Everton by the club, which will extend his contract, which currently ends at the end of June 2025. So yeah, as I said before, and as was confirmed earlier this morning, Bobble and the Echo told us on Twitter that Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been offered a new long-term deal at Everton, and the decision now lies with the player. Firstly, I want to say I think that's smart by the club. I think that's really smart to try and tie down a key asset to the club whose contract, as I said before, expires in June 2025. I think that's a real strong point and a real strong financial point from the club to be able to do that. As we know from recent articles in recent weeks, the Newcastle interest is materialising, and there is interest there from Newcastle. So I think he could be a good fit for Newcastle. And obviously, I'm here to talk about Everton. I'm here to talk about Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but I think he is a good fit for Newcastle, especially with potentially the Callum Wilson leaving. So I think that interest is definitely concrete, and a new contract from Everton being offered to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and if he signs that, I think it makes negotiations in that deal, pretty difficult for Newcastle, and puts us in a relatively strong situation in terms of negotiating power. So, one, I want to say that's a really smart decision by the club to offer Dominic Calvert-Lewin a new contract because, as I said, it puts us in a real strong position financially that we can get enough money for him. If Newcastle did come in with a big bid, it puts us in a strong position that way, but also it can fend off interest as well. So I think that's a really smart decision by the club, and it's a double-edged sword which works in our favour. And obviously, as I said, I've said at the start of the season, Jared Branthwaite's also a player that's so crucial for us, and signing him to a long-term deal, it's a very similar situation for me with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Branthwaite's contract was due to expire this June, June 2024, and tying him down to a long-term deal does it increase our negotiating power, and it means that we can get more money for players like Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Jared Branthwaite in the event that we do have to sell. But I don't want to be negative. I don't want to keep having to say that we have to sell players. But I've said all season, and a lot of Evertonians have banged on all season about the financial predicaments and FFP and stuff like that. I don't want to keep going on about it, and I want to talk about Everton. I want to talk about the football and how crucial Dominic Calvert-Lewin is to Everton Football Club. And as we saw in that running, he was instrumental in keeping us up, wasn't he? He was absolutely fantastic in so many games. A picture from the Newcastle game where he came on and scored that penalty and got us back into that game, got us a point on the road at St James's Park. I thought he was fantastic when he came on there, and that can't be ignored. That cannot be ignored for me. I think he was, he struggled, didn't he, from October in 2023 to obviously that Newcastle game where he scored the penalty and got on the score sheet for the first time in that horrendous drought that he had. But what I liked is he stuck at it. He kept, he had a lot of chances in front of goal that he wasn't able to convert. And, a lot of Evertonians, including myself, I was really frustrated with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I was calling for either Beto or Chimiti to start ahead of him. And I'll hold my hands up and say that he definitely proved me wrong in that running because he was fantastic in keeping us in the division and getting us over that line. But as I said before, he's crucial in a dice system, isn't he? He's absolutely instrumental in holding the ball up. For me, he's one of these. He's one of these strikers that you're probably not going to find another one for the price that you would get for him. As I said, if Newcastle do firm up this interest and come in with a 30-40 million pound bid, I don't think you're going to get a replacement that works well in a dice system that you would for the Dominic Calvert-Lewin money. I just genuinely don't think you're going to find anyone as good at doing that role. So, as I said before, he is crucial in that dice system, and that's obviously a big positive him staying and signing this contract because, on the one hand, I've talked about the financial predicament and the fact that he could be leaving, and it shores up our negotiation stance, but also in a footballing point of view, he's been fantastic for the last 7-8 games of the season. So that for me gives Dyche another option next season to maybe try and switch it up in midfield and explore other options. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's not going to be the biggest of problems in terms of players that we've got on the pitch. So I think that's definitely another positive of him staying is how crucial he is for Dyche's system. And we've got to talk about that Merseyside derby performance, haven't we? We have to talk about it. That performance for full 90 minutes, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. There was talk around that game that he was a little bit injured, and he had, I think it was the bobble in the immediate aftermath of that game. I think he said that he was playing with blood pouring out of his knee for the entire game. I think genuinely that shows his sort of his warrior stance, his warrior performance, because he was able to play the full 90 against Liverpool and put in an absolutely outstanding performance. I think that was the best performance I've seen Dominic Calvert-Lewin put in an Everton shirt. Honestly, it was absolutely amazing. And As I said before, that's just how he works in that system. That was the epitome of that for me. That the way Dyche set us up against Liverpool and the way we were able to completely nullify them and come away with a 2-0 victory. Obviously, him getting on the score sheet as well from a corner. That for me was a proper number 9 performance. And that's another positive of Dominic Calvert-Lewin staying, because if he can put performances in like that, like he did in the Merseyside derby, carrying them into next season, there's no reason why, he can't get even more goals. He can't, break double figures for the season in terms of goals. There's absolutely no reason why he can't do that. So I think for me that they're the biggest positives of Dominic Calvert-Lewin signing this contract. And just I think he's a likable fella as well for me, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's a player that's, he's had his struggles in the last 2 seasons. There's absolutely no denying that. Certain managers like, Rafa Benitez, Frank Lampard, they've rushed him back from injury because they know how crucial Dominic Calvert-Lewin is. And you look back to the Brighton game under Rafa Benitez, he should never have played that game, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because he missed a penalty, hit the crossbar from that penalty, and was rushed back from injury, got injured, and that was pretty much his season over from there. So I think that for me is one positive of Dyche this season. He's managed Dominic Calvert-Lewin very well, and he's managed him back to full fitness, which I think is a massive positive for Calvert-Lewin, because it seems now he's getting his confidence back and he's getting back to the stage that we saw in lockdown under Carlo Ancelotti. He's a player that's, I don't want to say it, but he is a massive confidence player. He's a player that, doesn't play well when the game's going against him. He doesn't play well when he's got his head down and he's on a little bit of a low morale. I think he's a player that once the wind's behind him and the floodgates open, like we saw with the Newcastle game just before the running, him getting on the score sheet from that penalty, I think once the wind's behind him, he just seems to carry on scoring, and he gets a level of consistency, which we know he has in there, which we've seen under Carlo Ancelotti. So I think for me, there's obviously a slight worry with his injury record. If that materializes again and gets worse down the line, you're tying an asset down to a long-term contract that could be injured again. But I don't want to think like that, because it seems to me now he's got the confidence back. He's getting back to a situation where he's fully fit. He's fully confident in himself, and he knows that he can put in 90-minute performances consistently week in, week out. So I think that's, it's a slight worry, but it's something that you sort of say at the back of your mind. I don't think it's something that should, hamper the decision of him signing a new contract. But, as I said before, did well to get over that drought. It was a difficult period for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but I think the fact that he did so well in the running and stepped up when it mattered, I think that shows that he should, be absolutely offered a new contract in terms of his footballing ability, because we know there's a player in there. We know there's a fantastic player there. So for me, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is, one of our core assets. He's one of our key players and definitely should be offered the contract. And I'm really pleased that the club have followed this route and decided to offer him the contract, because, it's really smart business for me. But as I said, yeah, all in all, really smart business from the club. He's clearly a very valuable player to us, and he's clearly a valuable player in the squad. In terms of squad morale, he seems to interact so well with players like Dwight McNeil, Amadou Onana. Amadou Onana might not be here by the time we start the new season, but no, for me, smart business by the club, and it only benefits the club going forward, and financially also, but also in terms of footballing ability and Dyche's system, I think it really benefits the club. So yeah, very smart from the club. Let me know your thoughts on Dominic Calvert-Lewin potentially signing a new contract. Obviously, it's completely up to the player now. Hopefully, he does sign it, and we can go into the new season with Dominic Calvert-Lewin signed to a new long-term deal. But let me know your thoughts on Calvert-Lewin. Should he be offered the contract? Do you think it's smart by the club? But make sure you like, comment, subscribe. But that's all from me today. I'll speak to you soon.